the converted man here. I've got Kurt Danhauser, who has animated Star Trek, the animated series, not the original on TV one, but the one on YouTube. Welcome, and thank you for taking your time and energy to agree to be interviewed.
Of course. Yeah, I'm glad to. Glad to be here.
So there's a whole bunch of nerdy questions, Okay, so we got Star Trek the animated series, not very super well known.
That's right.
So talk about a little bit about that. What's your interaction with that? How why
Sure.
why that?
Yeah. Basically, the internet came in the 1993, 94, and I started making some websites, and then I noticed that they had a number of different websites, on the internet, the interweb back in the day, and there was some Star Trek websites here and there, but there wasn't anything for the animated Star Trek, and I was a big fan of the animated series. Growing up, I always loved animation, and I love Star Trek. I actually am old enough to remember Star Trek when it originally aired. I was quite young, but I was 7 when the series went off the air, and I remember seeing episodes with my mom and dad and all that stuff. So I was a big Star Trek fan, and when the animated series came, I was just blown away because it was so awesome and all these new vehicles and everything. So I love the animated series. Anyway, so I decided I'll make a website, and I had a Macintosh, and I had what they used to call a video spigot, which was you could plug video from a VCR or whatever, or from a TV, whatever, from a VCR into this video spigot in the computer, and I could do crude frame grabs, so I can actually grab some images from the video Star Trek animated, and I could do a website, and then I could scan in images off of magazines and things like that, for the different bits of content. So I decided to write that up and write the stuff up and create a website. So I did that in 1996. So the site's still going strong after I don't know how many years, 20,
Essentially, the first wiki.
yeah, it was the first. It was the
Yeah.
first animated Star Trek website. Yeah, on the internet, and the one that there's another one by Cale Teskar who came along, and later on he had a website which also covered animated Star Trek in a different way, but mine covered the episodes and behind the scenes and all that stuff, and yeah, so and I've been doing it for a while, and I was actually people noticed, and yeah, there's a little bit about that, how I interacted with some authors and stuff who what do you call it, who wrote in what was it, in like 2009 or whatever, they wrote a book. This is Kevin Dillmore and Dayton Ward, and they were Star Trek authors who started looking at my website, and then they became authors of Star Trek books, and they approached me because they were going to name a character after me in their book. So I was interacting with people there, and I met and on my through my website, Fred Bronson, who actually was the NBC publicist on Star Trek the animated series, and also on Questor, the pilot series that Gene Roddenberry tried to get off the ground in mid 70s. Anyways, so I met Fred Bronson. He also wrote the final episode of the animated Star Trek. So that was kind of cool, actually meeting and becoming good friends with one of the authors or script writers of the series. So I interacted with a number of different people, and because of the series, and my series or my website was mentioned in some books. And also, I got the gig to design the cards, the animated Star Trek trading cards, and I used to have a reference to it on the front page. I guess I don't anymore. But there was a set of cards done by Rittenhouse Archives, a set of trading cards, 198 different trading cards done of the animated Star Trek series, and there was 22 episodes, of course, and they wanted it broken down into 9 cards each, And so I wrote the synopses in 9 parts for that, and I picked. They printed out a bunch of screen grabs, and I basically picked all the images for the front and back of the cards, and it was great. I mean, they basically, it's a dream for someone who likes the anime Star Trek
Yeah,
series
yeah,
to
that's
say,
really
hey,
cool.
create this card set for us. So they printed that, and that was really cool. So I
Yeah,
did
instead
that.
of nowadays they just they've kind of gotten infamous for shutting down fan projects. It seems
Oh
like
yeah, yeah.
a lot of people had their their Star Trek um homage taken down or whatever. And then it seems like now they've kind of lightened up on that. But for a while it was a real problem, which is just a shame that they why not say, hey, this is celebration, yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead,
I mean,
it's not.
it's a legal thing. They basically
Yeah,
have to enforce their copyright. Otherwise, they're setting a precedent for people not, or for them not doing it. For instance, if they let 3 or 4 people do something egregiously, then when a fourth
right,
person tries to do it, they go, "Hey, why are you singling out me? Because you established the precedent that these 3 guys can get away with it. Why me?" So then they don't have. It's difficult. It kind of makes it hard for them to defend their copyright, and our legal system is all precedent based. So when someone
right,
sets a
right.
precedent against something, they go, so I understand where they're coming from. Of course, it's no fun because
Yeah,
yeah,
right,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. So you got kind of a internet famous, so to speak, and you even interacted with some of the creators and got to be behind the scenes. Now, Decipher, when they came out with their card game, they never did. Uh, they never had any of the cartoon
Oh,
characters
a card game.
on cards at
Oh,
all. It was always just um people from just
the
you know
non-animated one.
yeah,
Yeah,
non-animated. And I thought, oh, like, that's interesting. They could have had like an because they had alternate universe cards or whatever, and
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
well, they could have had it be like the cartoon or the animated universe or something, and they never did. I'm wondering if it's a rights issue or whatever, but
It's
who
probably
knows.
because when they do, it's kind of like Star Wars. When they make movies and stuff, people say, "Hey, why don't you use the extended universe, or the books and everything?" It's because most people don't know those books, so
Yeah,
they
right.
know the there's the word canon, where something's official and people know it and stuff. Well, even if they had declared the animated series canon, because it wasn't being
Yeah, only.
shown and because it
Mhm.
really, it doesn't really hold up next to other shows, because of the production quality. Not that it was bad, but it's just an
It was
animated
different.
show versus
Yeah.
a live action. So they don't want to say, hey, these cartoons supposedly, are not, cool enough, or we can't really fold in what happened in them. But they kind of extended canon a little bit to include some important elements, because like the series
There's
Enterprise made
one
reference to
canon
that.
episode.
What's that?
Uh there's one animated episode that was declared canon. That was
Yeah,
Spock.
yesteryear, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, who really knows who holds what canon is? I mean,
Yeah, who knows? I don't know.
basically, if authors, write some, basically, if the people who create a series allow a reference to an animated series episode, whatever, and it goes and it passes, well, then it becomes canon because it becomes reference. It was referenced in a canon episode. I mean, if
Right.
Enterprise or if Next Generation were canon, well, then references to the animated series would become canon then by that nature. Like, for instance, when anybody mentions Captain Robert April, well, then that part of the animated Star Trek becomes canon. And
Ah.
that actually was created by Fred Bronson. Actually, that episode he wrote under a pseudonym. He wrote Counterclock Incident, which includes the captain before Captain Pike. So anyway, pieces of the animated series are canon, but I don't even know what canon means anymore, because if series like Discovery are canon, then I don't know what canon means anymore.
Yeah, in the alternate universe
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
of
It's a parallel universe. Yeah,
because Spock went back in time, and now I don't know what's going on. I don't know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's a upside down universe, like the mirror universe, but it's the upside down version.
Yeah.
So you got all this. Eventually, at some point, you get. How do you go from all that to where you're now animating this
Oh
this
yes. Well,
your
what
own
happened in
version of it.
2000? In 2000, I guess it was November of 2006 or seven, six, I think. In November 2006, the animated series came out on DVD, and and you know, you can actually insert DVDs into CD-ROM readers, and you can actually, you know, have through software you can draw or capture very good images, you know. And they didn't really remaster the show, but they actually did a very good capturing of it in the quality that it already existed, you know, because it was originally shot in 35 millimeter off of the animated cells. So no matter what you do, it's not going to be, unless you upsample or something, you're not going to have any resolution greater than the show had itself. But the DVD captured that quality, so you can actually do like what I did is I actually captured some frames off of a number of scenes, and I did like a proof of concept. I actually did I think it was like 1 minute or something like that. What do you call it? Proof of concept, where Kirk, Spock, and on the bridge, where we're having some dialogue about what became the first episode that I did, and Let the Heavens Fall. I had written that script, and then I did a proof of concept with some dialogue, and there was some shots of the bridge, some shots of the Enterprise, some shots of Kirk and Spock talking, because I wanted to figure out how to do lip syncing, so I did that, and so I did a proof of concept, and it looked pretty good. I was able to do it, because if I was gonna, I didn't want to do an episode and have it be really, really bad. This was before YouTube, so there really was no place to put it other than maybe streaming it or having it downloaded from a website. But I wanted to be able to at least burn it onto a DVD and give out to friends or something like that to see how it would work. And I actually did a proof of concept of that. And since it worked, I said, well, I'm going to go ahead and make an episode. And it took a while, and it took a long time to make, because I had a day job and I was working, had a wife and kids, so it was a lot of work. But in 2007, I basically set out to do that first episode, and I had the whole thing was already written, so I basically just started animating scenes, started creating scenes, and I do it a very it's like a techno Luddite way. I don't use any special animation software or anything like that. I basically just create all the images for a scene. Like there's a scene maybe of like a 3-second scene where Kirk is seen, and then over his shoulder or whatever, and then Spock's over there in the background, so he's talking, Kirk's talking. Well, what I'll do, I'll create a frame set which basically has the background in it, and Kirk and Spock are in there, and then I'll have different frames for Kirk's jaw position. We said different syllables or whatever. And then actually, a better example is when you actually see Kirk's face. So maybe Kirk is in the foreground and Spock's in the background, and they're both facing the camera in that traditional, like a trope where in Filmation, where they both have both characters facing you. Anyways, so what I do is I'd have frames in which Kirk was making the different shapes of his lips, and then also his eyes would be blinking, and I'd have shots of Spock's eyes blinking as he listens. And maybe if they're on the bridge, maybe I have some shots or some different frames in which the different blinky lights work in the background. So what I would do is I would actually generate a scene by basically creating all the different frames for this 3-second scene, and I would render it at 24 frames per second. And it's so basically 24 times 3 seconds, that's 72 frames. So I'd have actually about 72, little leader in the beginning and end. I would have 72 frames of Kirk talking, and I would actually do the lip sync. I'd actually record the dialogue, and I would say, okay, for these 3 seconds he's talking, and then he and I figure out what the lip
Some
positions be.
crazy editing skills.
I would render the scene. I'd render that scene.
Yeah, are you doing masks like on the background to, like, okay, I want more characters in the background, so mask out the original background and mask in the...
Yeah, I would basically create brand new images of I would yeah, exactly. So there may be a shot of like Scotty on the bridge, whatever, and I would like just use that same shot because I like the background, and I would just put Kirk in front of it, and maybe clean up the background a little bit. So I would actually now have a shot of Kirk where Scotty was or whatever. Or a lot of times you can actually get some pretty clean background plates, and I did that after a while. I would end up with some nice background plates of. So I don't have to Photoshop people out of it. I just would, had done that once, and now I have all these clean background plates of all the different sets I'm doing.
And as you go, you create an archive of
Yep.
footage that you can pull from.
Well, it's not so much footage; it's basically frame sets.
Yeah,
in
frame
Photoshop,
sets,
you have a thing called layers, and I would actually have layers where I have the background and I have the people in front of it, and then that way I can like say, oh, here's a shot where Spock is you see the Spock over his shoulder and he's talking, and then there's like Maress is in the background. Well, I could take Maress out and put Eric's there, so I could actually So I would redo I would recreate that frame set, and then generate frames of Spock talking to Eric's, and then I'd use those frames, and then I would basically create the frames, and then in QuickTime Pro you can actually say, well, open this folder and go ahead and open these files, which are named sequentially, like I would just call them like 0.jpg and 1.jpg too. They'd be numbered sequentially, so that they would actually make the lip syncing movement position, in order. And then I would actually render them into a 3-second QuickTime movie using QuickTime Pro. And then that little movie I would then make a whole bunch of those, and then ultimately I'd put them into what do you call it, iMovie, and then I would put the soundtrack to it. So it's crazy laborious.
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
it's amazingly insane how much trouble it takes.
I mean, it'd almost be like less work to just animate the character, animate it from scratch or something. It seems like almost,
Oh, well, I am actually. Well, it is actually from scratch.
You are animating in a way, because you're taking the images, you're selecting what parts, but you can.
Oh no! Actually, all these frames I'm generating, they actually are of that scene. It's just that I render out each scene, each frame. Like for instance, the shot of like Kirk talking to Spock. There's only a handful of different frames in that whole scene. There's basically the different lip positions, and then sometimes lip positions, I have to superimpose like the blinking or whatever. But I'll do those in Photoshop, so then I'll end up with all the images, kind of like individual cells, but they're all just 1200 by 910 pixel images. I'm going to make. I haven't done yet.
We're really into the weeds
how I do it video, where I actually show the things.
I was gonna say we're into the geeky weeds of the how to and all that, and I love it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Now who's doing? Are you doing all the voices? You get friends doing it, or
back in the day, I did all the voices, and then I had my middle daughter Phoebe, who lives in Philadelphia now. She did some voices. She did like some of the girl voices and stuff like that. I had her kind of do Uhura and stuff like that, because there were some scenes like in my first episode where Uhura speaking, not a whole lot, but a little bit. So I'd have her do that, and then later on, I had a friend of mine, like in the animated episodes, Quintain, for instance, and also in some of the logic lessons. There's a character called Tex, and he's a blonde character, and he wears a blue shirt. And my friend Adam, who actually is an actor, whatever, he lives in California still. I used to live in California. I moved away. Anyways, I have him do Tex's voice, and I have Adam do Tex's voice, and also he did the voice of the Metron in the Ptolemy Wept episode. Anyways, so I had other people do it, and then in 2016 I remarried. 2018 I remarried. But in 2016, I met my current wife, Melinda, and she does a lot of voices. She does a voice of Rand and Chapel and Bryce in my anime episodes, and I think she did some voices in Quintain. I don't think that many, because I don't think I had that many female characters in Quintain. But anyway, so she does those voices, but mainly it's me. On all the male voices are pretty much me, other than, like I said, Tex.
So are you are you just able to do the voices? Are you doing pitch shift or anything
Oh
like
yeah, yeah,
that? Or?
I do that. Yeah, what I do a pretty good Spock, but then what I'll do, because Spock's voice is a lot of it is cadences.
It's
He'll
quite
basically,
interesting. Yes.
yeah, what he says and how he says it. That's really what makes Spock Spock. So what I'll do is I'll record that, and then what I'll do is I'll pitch it down. So it lowers the voice because it makes it even different. But for instance, when I first started animating, I didn't do the voices so well, but I did do Kirk's and Spock's voices slightly differently. Kirk had, he talked like this a little bit more, and a little higher off of the glottis. It was a little more. It wasn't so low pitched. I didn't really necessarily pitch it up in when I spoke, but I kind of talked a little bit softer. And then Kirk Spock also had different cadences, and he also spoke with a lower voice. And then when I recorded it, I would actually pitch Kirk up, and then pitch Spock down, because especially when those two are talking, I want them to be more separate. And then in the later videos, it's more clear. But in the earlier videos, I didn't do enough pitching. I didn't do the voices well enough. But in Sulu, I just do Sulu. Like when I do a pretty good Sulu. I mean, it sounds just like Sulu. So and then Chekhov is I do kind of a silly kind of a he talks like this a little bit. It's just it's like this is. Oh, I'm the Tsar of all the Russias. I kind of, he's I'm the Tsar of all the Russias. He speaks a little differently.
Yeah.
And he speaks more and more hesitatingly, like he's an ensign. He's not sure of himself. And then other people have slightly different variations and stuff. But and when I do Jaeger, for instance, in the engineering one where Tex is talking to this German sounding guy, well, that's Jaeger. And I actually just do that. Actually, character looks like me, except of course I have light hair. But back then, that's it right there. For instance, the appeal to novelty. That's Jaeger there in the front, and then in the back that's Tex. Tex is done by Adam, and I do Jaeger. But then Jaeger has a German accent, so I just do a little kind of a silly German accent. And then the one below it, the Bulverism, that's two characters which came from the comic book actually. The Gold Key comic issue number, I guess it's issue number 15, which was yeah, those guys. And yeah, the guy on the left, that's Jakaro, and then in the right, that's Thrax.
Yeah. Does
And
he have
Thrax kind of
what
talks.
are his eyeballs?
Well, he's kind of like an augment or something like that. That's just what it
Yeah.
looked like in the comic, and I thought he just looked interesting as hell. So I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
him.
And sometimes you'll have various different characters in the brig.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I have oodles of those.
You've
Oodles of
had
those.
I think I saw Doctor Who, the Delmec, the robot
Daleks. Yeah, and the
Dalek,
Cybermen,
and
and
you
yeah.
had, oh geez, I don't know, but you had a bunch of different things. I was
I've
like,
had
oh,
many,
the
many, many,
thing,
many.
yeah,
Yes.
and so that's funny. But yes, you did it. I think this is pretty much why I found you, is because of the
Yeah.
logic
The
stuff,
logic. Yes.
and so
I've
why
always
did
fascinated
you?
by logic and fallacies. And in school, in what was it? I guess it was high school. In freshman, we had this class called Freshman Communications, and they talked about all the different fallacies like bandwagon approach and
Mm-hmm.
ad hominem. They had all the different ones. Kind of like to teach us, how to resist them when they use them in commercials, because commercials use fallacies all the time. So I started learning that, and I go, that's really fascinating. And then I took a lot of logic when I went through college. I took well, actual predicate logic and symbolic logic and math logic, but I also took principles of sound reasoning, and I learned about these things, and I was just fascinated. So I started. So years ago, in between doing full episodes, I would do little vignettes. I do little short things, and what I did is I created PSAs. That's what I really kind of started. Also, when I did the PSAs, I did the PSAs for all original 22 episodes. Just for kicks, I said, like, what lessons would be taught in the slaver
Oh
lesson.
yeah, I was gonna ask why the why the PSA is like, I couldn't quite figure out what that was about. Okay, yeah, because they used to always have to have like morals at the end of the
Well, they actually,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Filmation created those, and they did those for like, for some different shows. They didn't have them for Star Trek because Star Trek, I guess for some reason it was, they
They
specifically
did it when it was like toys, I think. Like,
yeah, well, when there were toys, and they also when there was any kind of violence, like Batman, like for the second Batman series,
yeah.
in
Sometimes they didn't always
1977,
do it.
they
Yeah.
added morals. It's because they kept trying to fight the people trying to cancel them, basically, cancel culture back then. Because if you have any
Yeah, the
kind of
parents
action,
were
they say, oh,
upset. Yeah.
kids will copy it and they'll get hurt. So they constantly had to add all this stuff. So Filmation was the one who actually started those PSAs, and they didn't have them for Star Trek, except later on after the show was over, there was a PSA for Keep America Beautiful, and that was with the animated Star Trek characters, but Filmation never had them. So I said, well, what if they had those kind of end of the episode epilogues, so
Right.
they had those for Batman, they had them for GI Joe and things like that, and I said, well, just for kicks, I created them for Star Trek, and I did them in a kind of a very, very serious way, but of course, because of the way they're done, they're kind of tongue in cheek, so they're kind of funny in our modern sensibilities. Like don't let strangers into your house, for beyond the farthest star. So they beamed aboard that magnetic entity, or don't
Right.
sneak out of your house at night, for yesteryear, because you snuck out and got lost, in the Vulcan's forge. And be careful what you put in your mouth, for one of our planets is missing, because you remember that cloud being ate up the Enterprise and stuff like that. And equality of women, I did that for the Lorelei signal, because like Uhura took over the ship, and these are actual real lessons you could learn, because Star Trek was, you can actually learn from them, because they're actually, the characters were acting nobly, and because they weren't bad guys, they were the good guys. So
Yeah,
when
right.
good guys just act, they ultimately act out their what do you call it? What's the opposite of sin? Virtues.
Right,
So
right.
be careful of wild animals. That was more tribbles, more troubles, things like that. And be yourself, don't lie. It was the Survivor. You remember the Vendorian that became Carter Winston. So I just did a bunch of these. I did 9 first. I said, I'm only gonna do 9, and then I realized, wait a minute, this is a lot of fun. So I ended up doing all 22 of them, and then a little bit later, I said, those are kind of fun, and I was still working on more and more animated episodes. But there was a lot of time in between. So then I decided, somehow I hit upon the logic lesson one, and I started I did the Spock one.
Is that your most popular?
Well, I think the Quintain is very popular because it's new, and for someone must have tagged it, or someone who has a bunch of viewers must have favorited it or something, or it ended up somehow trending or something, because I got an awful lot of hits really quickly when it came out. So
because then the other ones are pretty good too. The other full episodes are good.
Oh
too.
yeah,
just that one's my favorite because it's Scotty. I love Scotty.
Oh, it's Scotty, yeah, and it was a lot more actiony. It was a lot less talk and more action, and it was actually like an episode could have really been. Obviously, the other two could have been like an episode, but Quintain, I think, is very much in keeping with the way the show was. A lot of action and some good good heart in there too, because and there's a couple of Easter eggs, of course, for people too. I put some references in there to Mayweather maneuver and the Archer maneuver and things like that.
How long does it take from idea to finished product?
Okay, it depends on the it depends on what it is. Like, for instance, doing a logic lesson, it doesn't take as much time because I can kind of reuse the frame sets. The Spock's talking shots are the same shots. I just have to re lip sync them and stuff like that. And sometimes I have to create new backgrounds and stuff like that or new setups, because maybe they refer to something that wasn't referred to in other logic lessons, and like in one episode, Sulu raises his phaser because he threatens Chekhov, because that was the appeal to the stick, or ad baculum.
Ad baculum, yeah.
He's going to hit you or whatever, So I had to add that little animation, but most of the time, it's just rejiggering the same kind of action, but just with different dialogue. So that doesn't take so long, but it does take a while to lip sync them, and that takes a while, and recording them and writing them. It takes a while to write them. But let's say the thing's written. Like for instance, I'm working on a full length one, which actually is going to be probably an hour long. It's called The Abyss, and it has a lot. Kirk's a main character of that one, and well, there's a lot of let's see. It's kind of like Sliders, okay, and that's all I'll say. But there's things, he basically is traveling through different slices of the universe, or parallel universes, and anyways, that one actually is written. I think it's like 95% written. There's a couple of scenes I haven't quite written, but just because I haven't wrote the final dialogue. Anyways, but so that was written, and it's going to be an hour long. And I'm storyboarding it now, and it takes a long time to storyboard because that's literally where I figure out what's going to be in every shot. But once storyboarding is done, then I actually have to create all the Photoshop of the scenes. And a lot of scenes, like for instance, like characters on the bridge, I may actually have all the shots I need. If it's just Kirk, Spock, and McCoy on the bridge or whatever, or even Scotty, I have a lot of those already there. But for instance, if I wanted to have a new shot of like Kirk, Spock, and McCoy in the same shot, whatever, or as Scotty's talking to him, I would have to move things around. So I would have to create those. That would take some time. But if I had the elements, which I do for those kind of characters, I could just move them around, and then it wouldn't take that much time. But when I have to create brand new backgrounds, or change the uniform of someone, or change the create new characters, that takes a good amount of time. So Quintain, for instance, took let's see. I began that year. That was in 2020, and I began. I think I started really in earnest making scenes for that in March of 2020. I think it took like maybe 8-9 months for that one. But I worked a lot on that. I mean, I actually worked from home, but I was actually able to do a lot of animation and a lot of Photoshop while I was, dialing into meetings and listening to meetings and stuff like that. And, because there was meetings I had to be at, and I was taking notes, but I can also, be Photoshopping at the same time, multitasking. But so that one was took less time, but also there's a lot of existing shots. I mean, but I created for Quintain, if you notice in Quintain, if you scroll down actually on that same page, let's see, you'll see the let's see, let me go to that page. Go to Quintain. Quintain, there it is. There, if I go to the, you scroll all the way down, you see the images from the episode, all those different scenes. There's a lot of new space scenes, obviously, down below, and I had like there's some existing shots of like the hangar decks doors opening, but like the scout ships coming in and out, that was all new, and there's a whole lot of new. There you go. Whole lot of the of new animation. Whole lot of new animation. Like there was the whole saucer separation, which of course was mentioned in the making of Star Trek, because Roddenberry thought of the saucer being separable as like a lifeboat, of course, flying off at subwarp speeds, but it was a technique that was originally planned for. And of course, in different sources that they're not necessarily canon, but it's different write-ups and different things online and stuff, you can see like, they really they couldn't reconnect without a starbase, but that was never mentioned anywhere officially. So and the Enterprise D could do that, so I figured, well, I'll have it possible in the animated series, because I mean, if the Enterprise could eject a inflatable version of the Enterprise, well, they can also reattach the secondary to primary hull if they need to. So,
and what are these little shuttles that are kind of like round?
Yeah, actually those were that drawing right there. And then if you scroll up, there's one from the back view of it right up there. Those actually were drawings that were you could actually see in the Star Trek Concordance, which came out in 1976, whatever. And B. Joe Trimble had grabbed those from the Filmation staff. Those were designed That was a design of a scout ship that was designed for the animated series, but never used. They never used it in any episode. But you actually could see it in, I think, Mud's Passion. I think in on the left of the shuttle hangar, you can actually see, one of those. Scout ships in the hangar, because they actually painted the background and all this stuff, whatever, because they design things for a series when they go into it. Like, for instance, they score the episode, the show, and they write all the different stings, the music they go to and come from commercials for, and the actual, they have different themes, the romantic theme, action theme, and hard driving action theme, and funny themes, all these different themes they would write and actually score them. Yeah, actually, I think if you scroll back up, I think, let's see. Wait, no, go back down again. Right. Yeah, go down. Right. Oh, yeah, okay. That scene. Oh, yeah. See on the far right. That's a right there on the far right there. That actually is from an animated episode. I actually left that there, and that's actually the scout ship. Of course, it's kind of a goofy looking, but that's effectively supposed to be that scout ship. And those shots that I used, I just added the color, but those are the drawings from B. Joe Trimble's concordance that basically showed that scout ship that was designed for the show by Filmation, but never rendered. And there's a number of different shots of like the Enterprise that were designed, but they never used. There was a shot of like the Enterprise from above. I don't think it's in any of these shots, but there's a establishing shot of the Enterprise. Oh, yeah, of course, there's the hangar deck, which is not hangar deck, the tractor beam, which is brand new. Yeah,
is that laser or phaser, whatever's coming down?
That's the tractor beam.
It. Oh, that's the tractor beam. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever saw that in the.
No, but that's where it supposedly came out in if you scroll up, there's the way up above these pictures. There's a reference to the tractor beam. You keep going up. Keep going right. Yeah, right. Oh, go down.
Oh, okay.
Right there.
Yeah.
And see, it actually shows.
I see.
That's kind of course, they had a little door that flipped open, but I figured it should retract. It looked better. But that's how the what do you call it? Franz Joseph, whatever, Chanel belt, drew it in the Enterprise blueprints. Okay. So I figured, well, I'll go ahead and modify that slightly, but make the tractor beam come out of there. But that's one thing we never saw. We never saw the tractor beam.
It's very clever. It's very clever.
Yeah, they never showed the original series. Never showed, or the animated never showed the tractor beam actually being extended and used. So I went ahead and did that. But so it's basically everything I ever wanted to see as a kid in Star Trek. I could actually do it in my own little thing. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, you've really put a lot of time and energy into all of this.
Thanks.
It's very, very, very evident. And I just love the logic stuff because I love logic. And
oh yeah, those are fun.
I eat that up and I
know, me
yes, too. More. And I kind of paid an homage to it in one of my videos, but I didn't do the super mega editing. I just used stills. I'm like, that's good enough for me.
Oh yeah,
I could be there for hours doing it. I'm sure.
Oh, tell me about it. You have no idea. It's insane.
But I had Spock, this is a logical fallacy, like, whatever. It's only logical. It's like he hears everything because he's got.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Well, it's basically in real life, senior officers, especially senior officers, whatever, their job is not just to do whatever their job is, the executive officer, but senior officers are actually mentoring junior officers, so when they see someone putting on their emergency breathing apparatus incorrectly, they'll correct them, and say this is the actual correct way to do that. That's how anybody teaches anybody anything, is mentoring. That's the classic way. So I was in the Navy, and actually that's what people did. They mentored their juniors by giving the example and also correcting them. And then of course afterwards the guy said, "Thank you, Mr. Spock," and they go, "Yes, I should redo my thinking," says the characters, because of course he's a senior officer, he's their executive officer, almost their commanding officer. So of course they're going to be deferential to him. So people always go, "Hey, they should just yell at Spock, get out of here." But I mean, it's because these people have never been on a Navy ship, obviously, or a ship, or never been in any position of working with your boss without getting fired. I mean, you don't tell your boss off. I mean, but people write off these comments because they're just watching this as a person sitting at home, not realizing what actually it goes on when there's a senior and a junior person in an actual environment in which teaching goes on and things like that. I mean, obviously it's funny because every episode is effectively the same. Spock is overhearing these things and he walks over, but each one within its own universe is just a learning moment,
Right. And now you have alternate the mirror universes. Is there any rhyme or reason to why it's mirror universe sometimes and
Oh no, because well, there's a couple reasons.
Like X number of episodes is going to be that, or
well, I try to mix them up, and but I like the mirror universe characters and stuff like that, oh my gosh, this is one of my favorites, and the reason is very good, actually, very good question, DM. The one of the reasons is like in the mirror universe, you can have like the mirror Sulu be an SOB, and actually make really bad arguments, whereas you can't necessarily make Sulu or Chekhov or Erickson or Rand or Chappell make really stupid, I mean, they can make somewhat foolish mistakes, whatever, but they're not going to be, make some of the really ridiculous fallacies or whatever, like ad baculum, threaten to hurt someone. But I can do it in a mirror universe because they're a bunch of SOBs, So
yeah, right.
That's why. And another one is I actually kind of in the Hangar Deck. There's a new series of them I'm doing in the Hangar Deck, and the first one dropped I guess last year, and another one is going to drop soon, and it's basically not the Hangar Deck. No, sorry. No, not the Hangar Deck, but the Rec Room. In the Rec Room is Randy Bryce and Lieutenant Commander Tom Markel from the Ariel, from the episode Eye of the Beholder, where basically Tom Markel beamed, three of his crew members were lost on the planet, whatever, or some of them, and then he beamed down the rest of them, him and his navigator and Randy Bryce, the three of them beamed down and left the ship abandoned in orbit. So basically he abandoned his ship and lost his whole ship because, that's being down. So it's like, he's kind of not the best captain. Okay. He's kind of foolish in that respect,
Yeah.
So I figured, well, I'll have him make some really egregious ones. Like for instance, he's the gaslighting guy and he's made, there's ones where he, two wrongs don't make it right, cause and there's a bunch of them in which he's pretty much kind of not a crook, but yeah, not the best officer. Okay, let's put it that way. He's kind of a not good.
I've got a pitch for you. You should do the formal laws of logic and have Bones say, Dim and Jim, I'm a doctor, not a floor wax, whatever,
Oh yeah, and not a logician.
Yeah, right. And Spock says, "Well, of course not. The law of identity."
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right.
Be like, what are you talking about, Spock? I'm just.
Yeah, I actually haven't. I haven't had McCoy. Actually, McCoy actually is plays a cameo in an episode coming up, but or an animated episode, or no, an animated in a logic lesson. But I don't have him be the brunt because again, he's a senior officer. And he's not. I don't want Spock to come off.
Yeah, like, but they always jabbed at each other.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I could have him. He could have been the one for the emotions, whatever. But I had the originally wrote those for Rand and Chappell. But one thing I'm coming, for listeners, one of the ones I'm going to do is. In the episode Yesteryear, the parallel universe in which Spock died as a child, whatever, right? There was a Commander Thalen was a Andorian who was actually the executive officer of the ship, right? Remember that Commander Thalen was in the parallel universe. This guy Commander Thalen was a an Andorian, and he actually was the executive officer of the Enterprise in that parallel universe. Of course. Kirk and Spock are like, who's this Thalen guy? Anyways, well, in that parallel universe, there is the parallel universe that, exists, just like any other story, in that parallel universe where Spock dies as a boy, there was, Spock wasn't the executive officer, but Thalen was. So I actually have a logic lesson where Commander Thalen is actually the person instead of Spock doing the logic lesson.
Oh
So,
yeah, I remember reading it was like a Shattered
oh,
Mirror
is that right?
series or something clad that.
Oh yeah. That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, I have it.
Those were pretty good. Yeah, those
Is it-
books pretty good.
yeah, let's see. Shattered.
Shattered Mirror, Shattered Universe, something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. I
have
forget
it
what
on
it's.
my shelf. Yeah. I haven't read that one yet, but yeah, that's right. That actually came from that episode, and yep. So just for kicks, I'm doing it with Thalen, and then in that one, McCoy actually is in auxiliary control, and he's talking with what do you call it, Lieutenant Erickson, the historian, and also Ali Cohn, the Bird character, and he's in it, and he's talking
Yeah.
to McCoy.
I believe in the book they had that um because he was was it the blue, what's the blue guy's now?
Thalen. Andorian.
And Dorian, thank you.
Yeah.
That he was emotional, and then so McCoy winds up being more rational and logical in response. Really? Yeah, and it's like so McCoy's just doing that to annoy Spock. So that's like that's his thing. It's like, I'm gonna annoy the first officer. That's my role.
Yeah. Well, McCoy actually is, he's a doctor and he's a scientist. Obviously, he uses logic. It's just that he bristles that Spock always says that, like, unemotional is better.
Yeah, he doesn't have the emotion. So you need the emotion too.
Yeah. So he casts himself as more of an emotional, but obviously he's a very logical person and can make good decisions. It's just that he basically makes sure that he over emotionalizes when Spock's around. But yeah.
Right. So there's a couple of YouTube shorts done in the style of the animated series with TNG, Voyager, and Deep Space Nine. Well, not Deep Space Nine, but yeah.
Voyager and
Voyager and
Next Generation. Yep.
Next Gen, but not Deep Space Nine yet. But I'm sure somebody's working on it. But so there's not, that's completely original. But is there any thoughts, any ideas of doing anything crazy like that to?
Yeah, I was actually thinking of doing a either a logic lesson or just a short film, a vignette of using filmation style, like the who did the animated Star Trek and Fat Albert and and a lot of those in Gilligan and things like that, but the filmation style, and doing like an Orville sequence, like a 2-minute one or something like that, because that's just such a great show, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to do. I was also I have a kind of a short. It's a short, and it's like a clip show. You know how there's a clip show version of every episode, or every series has a clip show where they go, hey, remember that time? And they would just film like 5 minutes of actual new material to bridge everything, and then they would have a whole hour where they have a bunch of remembrances, and they can actually do that to keep the budget low, and they would spend less money on that episode, so then they'd have more money to put on a very, very elaborate episode where they had to build some extra sets or whatever.
What was the TNG that did that?
Shades of Grey, I think.
Shades of Grey,
yeah.
It's the only time they did it, and it was just so bad. It didn't make any sense. It was like,
well, I think they did that as cost cutting.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they did. They just ran out of, but they didn't have like, the writers were on strike. I don't know, but it's like there were so many things they could have done instead.
Oh yeah.
It's like, oh well,
So I wrote a clip. It was an animated. It was what it was Galaxy Quest, and it was like I said, this was supposedly an episode of or joining in already in progress a segment of the animated Galaxy Quest series. Of course, there never was, but it was an episode, and what it was happened to be a clip show, animated episode. Like, I remember that time when, oh yeah, and they would have like a card or a couple of images, static images of that episode where they, visited the planet of everybody had the same hat or whatever, or had hats. Anyways, it was basically had a whole, it was like a kind of a little parody, but it was really a send up of animated Star Trek or animated series of the science fiction of the 90s and stuff like that and 80s. And it was like going to have all the tropes in it, and it was going to be with Galaxy Quest characters. But I wrote that, but I've never done it because it's I have to create everything from scratch. There was no reusing anything, but I still might do that because Galaxy Quest is cool.
Are you a good artist?
Yeah. Like for instance, like all these new characters in, like for instance, the Quintain. The purple guy and the green guy, those are all new, and all the ships that you see in there are
you
new.
Drawing them like on a pad or
well, I draw them actually. Again, I'm so techno luddite. I actually draw them on paper, and then I ink them, and then I scan it in, and then I clean it up, and I do there. So and then for instance, that purple ship that flies around, that's all drawn, and then I scan it, and then I paint it in Photoshop. And like the actually all the new characters, and for instance the shots of, like for instance, Kyle when Kyle's doing a lot of stuff, only a few shots of Kyle really exist that I could really use, but when he's at the Spock's viewer and turning his head and everything, that's all new. And when he's full frame and then over his left shoulder, all those are pretty much new shots of Kyle. Commander Kyle with a mustache. What's kind of cool is they added a mustache in animation, which is kind of fun. So and then those shots of Yeoman Rand, that's all new. And of course the character of Tex. I don't think I have any new shots of the existing characters. I think there's enough of them from every angle, but except for Erickson, I've added some new shots of Erickson. And of course in the Ptolemy Wept, the one before this one, Flint. He was in that, the Flint Immortal. That's all new animation of him.
Right. Now, have you had any issues at all with any of your content getting hit by anything? Or?
Yeah, a while back. It was back in, I think, 2016. The 3-part episode, and Let the Heavens Fall. Those were all struck or whatever, or copyright. And you go, what's weird is they just like took them down. They go, we're just gonna take them down. And I was like, okay. And I was like, what? And I sent emails. Of course, YouTube never responds because it's like they can't tell why anything happened. So, that's it right there. And those were taken down. And then basically it was, I guess, like it was a year later or something. I just like uploaded them again, and it was okay. But I didn't get any guff other than that. Obviously, and a lot of the fan people are kind of like bristling because they came up with the guidelines saying, you can't have a series of episodes, you can't do this, you can't do that. But I really don't have a series. I just kind of do an episode now and then.
You're not making any money on any of this.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
Yeah. So this is just a hobby. I mean, but you could. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess if you did, you'd have to do something completely original in the style. Maybe you could get away with that, but it'd be.
The style is not copyrightable. But that definitely the different
the characters, the name, all the stuff. Yeah, all that's reserved.
Yeah.
Trademarked and whatever's.
And I wouldn't want to make. I wouldn't want to try to monetize whatever. But I just have too much fun. But let's see. You also mentioned, you said, are there any other things I want to do? Yes, I'm actually going to do I'm going to start doing a logic lesson first, just for fun. But I want to ultimately do a full episode of the Planet of the Apes. Remember the Return to the Planet of the Apes, which came out in 1975?
There was a cartoon.
Yeah,
and
the cartoon.
Was a TV series. There was
a TV that one exactly. I want to do an episode of that because I'm a huge Planet of the Apes fan, as much as I am Star Trek. Well, not as much, but close second is Planet of the Apes. So I'm going to do one of those. And Rick Handy, I think his name's Rick Handy. Yeah, Rich Handley. Yeah, he's the one who does the Hassline books, whatever, and he does a lot of the Planet of the Apes books and things like that. I've actually been in communication with him since I don't know, for like 10, 15 years, whatever. So I may chat him up and then maybe, collaborate with him. I haven't yet, but collaborate with him hopefully on a story or something like that. But I want to do I already have an idea for an episode. And it would kind of be it would be like one of the later episodes, because, the first few episodes of the how it kind of follows a story, the Return of the Planet of the Apes episodes, they're not like just, they're all stand on their own, but also it starts from the beginning, when the astronauts crash and stuff like that, and it goes all the way to and they steal an airplane and things like that, and they do all these different things, but so it kind of is has an arc, but it would be near the end, but I'm not sure what the ultimate story is going to be, but I really like the Planet of the Apes, and I really want to do some more like that. And there's a bunch of little short scenes I'd like to do. Like I'd like to do, just like you mentioned, the what's it called on the internet, the Voyager episode, and then they did the Next Generation episode. I kind of want to do a very short thing like that, maybe even using original voices, but for like Space 1999, for instance. I kind of wanted to do an episode maybe that or a 2-minute short that would basically explain how the characters from season 1 become the characters of season 2, because some characters go away and they change uniforms. So I was gonna do a like a little story that kind of bridges that. And actually, if you scroll down, there is actually a mention, I realized, on my page. There it is. If you go back up a little bit, up, right there. That's where I talk about the cards, collectible trading cards, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. So, anyways, that was a long time ago.
Good times.
2002. Good Lord.
I mean, you've been doing this.
I know.
15 years, so
Yeah.
Like,
well,
now this channel that I'm on, it's not that old, but I've been on YouTube since it started, so various different accounts and whatever.
Well, actually, it's 28 years. My site's been up for 28 years, so it's pretty crazy.
Good times, man. It just goes by. There was a thing running around that if Back to the Future was remade last year, Marty would be going back to 1993 or whatever. I was like, no.
Well, I know. It's crazy. The future for them was yeah.
Yeah, right. It's like, no, wait a minute, But of course, we had some people say, we're making some jokes and a Red Dwarf crossover and.
Oh yeah.
And Firefly, but with Star Trek characters and.
Yeah, crossover would be really wicked. Yeah, I really haven't thought about it.
It'd be hard to do, though. It'd be pretty hard to do because you'd have to.
Well, in the episode or the logic lessons featuring Harry Mudd and Cyrano Jones, there, as you mentioned earlier, there's like the brig.
Yeah, the brig.
There's all the inmates, So there's a bunch of inmates that I've stuck in there, and actually going forward, I have a bunch more coming. But yeah, they're that's a lot of fun just because they're just thrown in the background. So some of them, like I've had like Space Ghost villains back there, and I've had Ukla the Mock, and Gloop and Gleek, and some and then some characters from Babylon 5 and Doctor Who and Lost in Space. Planet of the Apes, I actually had Zaius and Urko. So yeah, it's a lot of fun just throwing them in there. And I actually had like from Major Matt Mason, I had Scorpio and Callisto and stuff like that. So and Alf and Debbie the Bloop, and Looney the Lazoon, from so things like that. And Brainiac and Charlie Robot from what's it called? Scooby Doo. Creature Black Lagoon. All these characters have been back there, and
so
the Metalunan from This Island Earth, whatever, bunch of crazy things. So it's kind of fun to throw. So in a way, those are kind of crossovers a little bit, but maybe not.
Yeah. let me go back to logic real quick and wrap things up here. But yeah, when you learned logic, did the way that you viewed reality, did you notice kind of a change there once you learned?
I've always been very, very kind of logical because I was very mathematically inclined. So I was always good at math, and I majored in physics in college and stuff like that. So I was always kind of I was in tune with the real world. And basically logical fallacies was a way of kind of being able to explain why I don't believe in this kind of foolishness or that. Like for instance, one of them I've written but I haven't finished yet is the Barnum or Forer effect. Where basically people say, oh, here's your horoscope. Oh wow, and people believe it. Because well, it's a cognitive bias. And a lot of the because I've almost exhausted all of the classical fallacies. I've added biases, like cognitive biases, kind of like in the Kahneman and Tversky. They have a lot of their books and stuff like that on cognitive biases and what do you call it? Availability heuristics and what do they call that? Whatever. I can't speak very intelligently off the cuff, but basically there's an awful lot of prospect theory, things like that. Anyways, there's a lot. The way the human mind is built, it's not fully logical. It's based on what helped ancient man deal with things. And like there's a lot of xenophobia built in. There's a lot of not like me. I hate. It's not like me. I'm afraid of it. And then that's what that is. And there's a lot of
Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yes, and yeah, and yeah. Oh, yeah, that one too. And there's a lot of that's actually one I'm working on right now too. Dunning-Kruger effect. So there's a lot of different things that are our brains are not built to necessarily do perfect logic, but just to allow us to solve problems quickly. So there's the different. Like
I mean, so it's amazing.
Some rules are built into our brains.
Yeah, it's amazing.
They're not always right.
The real world, the way it is with its intricacies, just defies our intuitive understanding. Yes. It's like we're just particles and we're just energy, and it's like it's all probability. It's just like it's enough to
just because something is difficult to wrap your brain around doesn't mean it's incorrect. But
right. And we're hurtling.
I don't understand it, therefore it's probably wrong. Yep.
Oh yeah. Appeal to ignorance. I had a recent comment that I went over where somebody said, I said, you need to be able to show that something is true to know that it's true. And they're like, oh yeah, show that's true.
Oh yeah.
All right, you want a truth table? I'll bring up a truth table.
well, then there's all kinds of arguments that basically hinge on what do you call it? Can we know anything? But then if you start doing that, then you basically have to say, you have cogito ergo sum. I think therefore I am. Because you can actually argue that you don't exist, but of course, obviously you do. So a lot of these things
reality is real. Let's move on.
Chasing,
yeah. There's like axioms and a lot of logic is based on axioms and
exactly
tautologies, and it's like, look, you
have to assume something, and then that something, yes, you can assail that, but not within the framework of the thing in which you take those things as axiomatic. You can have it's like Euclidean, non-Euclidean geometry. You assume that at infinity lines come together, or they don't ever come together. Parallel lines never join. Well, there's two different ways. Well, okay. Well, you can have an entire geometry, and they have, based on Euclidean or non-Euclidean, and they're both internally consistent. And the same thing with math as a formal system is incomplete. Gödel's theorem and all this stuff, but you can still use it for everything. It doesn't matter if it's not internally consistent as a formal language or a formal system. That's okay, because math as a formal system is incomplete. Who cares? The incompleteness doesn't keep you from calculating what the angle of that ladder should be to not fall over, right? You can still build all the bridges based on tensor theory, because the math that you're worried about is the normal math. It's like classical versus quantum mechanics. At very, very small scales, at very, very fast speeds, physics goes out the window, right? But in the classical realm, quantum mechanics basically maps back into classical when things are very, very slow, or things are very, very large, compared to atoms and stuff. Well, everything works classically, and all of classical physics still works. But of course, quantum mechanics, basically
Yeah, I
has
remind
to.
people a lot when they do, like,
Yes.
say, the Kalam cosmological argument. I've covered that and all its fallacies.
Hmm.
Um, that it starts with this assumption of
Hmm.
causality going backwards, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, you can't do that because at a certain point the universe gets really small, really hot, and we have no idea what the bleep that would be like. Like when it's that hot, I don't know
Exactly.
what's going to be different. I mean, like maybe because our laws of logic are based on the observation of reality. So
Yes.
could
Yes.
they
Yes.
be
Yes.
different in that universe? I don't know. I mean, there'd still be
Well,
laws, but they'd
yeah,
be,
exactly.
the
You can't
physics would be
extend.
different, and
Yes.
who knows what it would look like. It's like,
Yeah.
the
You
old,
can't extend past a singularity. And basically
yeah,
the singularity
right.
in the very beginning.
I don't
You know,
even think you can get to the singularity.
no, exactly, because within
You
the
know,
fractions of a second, physics didn't exist. The laws of physics
right.
came into being fractions of a second. At different times. So in like 10 to the minus 15 seconds, whatever. This law of physics
What was
existed. So
that like? Yeah,
what
it's
would
just a.
life be like there? Well, there is no life because basically
What
10
would
to the minus
anything
15 seconds
be?
is
Yeah.
instantly over, and then it becomes afterwards. So
Wouldn't
it's
it
kind of
be
like
it? It
yeah,
would be so amazing to see that. I
I
don't
know,
even know if
yeah,
you could. I guess you'd have to have some sort of very
yes,
powerful
yeah.
microscope. You know, that's what it was though. See, we go back in time finally, and we
You
go
have
to
to be
try to
outside of
observe.
time.
Yeah, we try to observe the universe starting, and that's what causes the universe,
Oh
right?
yeah, that's right. It's a predestination
You're
paradox.
right,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's right. Yeah,
Okay.
the flashlight we shined on this very very dark spot, in the beginning of the universe, is actually what was the impetus
That
to
was
cause
that
the
was the light,
Big
right?
Bang.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the photons of the
that's right.
flashlight. That we can't see a thing. Turn on the flashlight. Uh
Ah, it
oh.
caused the universe.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I knew it.
a lot of shows are like that. Yeah, there was a Doctor Who episode in which was let's see, with a Jake. He had a this guy, this Jageroth guy, whatever. What do you call it? Was trying to he was split across time, and he wanted to go back in time and land his ship correctly instead of crashing it, because when it blew up, he was fractured throughout time. Anyways, so I forget what it's called, but anyways, it was in the 80s. It was with the Fourth Doctor. Anyways, um, that explosion of his ship back then was the burst of radiation that basically caused the first the primordial soup to basically start mutating. So basically it was us
It's a
because of that.
reverse of Picard, the final TNG episode where they have the reverse
Yes, that
paradox.
too.
Yeah.
That's right. That
Yeah.
exactly.
It's
Yeah.
like you caused everything to stop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So it actually,
All good things. All good things. I couldn't
yeah, all
say.
good. That was right. That's right. That was the last Next Generation episode, as far as I'm concerned. Just
Good
kidding.
good times. Good
Yeah.
times. All right. Well, thank you so much,
Oh
Kurt.
yes.
Everybody go sub to Kurt, and all the links are in the description. And I'm wondering if you could be Spock and say the thing. It's only
Oh,
logical thing.
let's see. Let's see. Let's see. What's a phrase? Excuse me, gentlemen. I couldn't help overhearing. And then it says, that may be so, but well, I don't have the script in front of me. Yeah.
He doesn't do improv.
Yeah, I know, yeah, exactly. Even if it seems that one is thinking rationally, one must always strive to avoid giving in to cognitive biases, such as the psychologist's fallacy. These biases are systematic patterns of deviation from rationality and judgment, causing judgments to be made in an illogical fashion. It's only logical.
Yay!
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much. And
Okay, well, take care.
all right. Stay here while you hit the button. Just okay. And goodbye, everybody on the thing. Ah, yes. Oh man, this joke. Oh my goodness. And Finn.